Amongst the many moving parts on a movie shoot, few things are more crucial than the camera itself, the glorious, basically magical device that captures images for our entertainment. However, given the problematic nature of certain horror productions, there have been plenty of times when the camera has been outright destroyed beyond further use, or at the very least needed extensive repairs. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are 10 horror movie scenes that broke the camera. Number 10. The Hospital Explosion, Halloween 2. Halloween 2 is one of the all-time great horror sequels, often overlooked by some for the sheer fact that it had to somehow follow in the footsteps of John Carpenter's legendary 1978 film. For Halloween 2's fiery climax, we see Dr. Sam Loomis trigger a gas explosion in Haddonfield Memorial Hospital that seemingly kills both himself and Michael Myers. But as confirmed by director Rick Rosenthal on the movie's DVD commentary, this cinematic inferno ended up burning wildly out of control for real. Rosenthal said the crew had a hard time putting that fire out, with the flames still active even after every fire extinguisher on hand had been used. Though the fire was eventually taken care of, it ended up causing unexpected damage to one of the cameras shooting coverage for that scene. There's a shot in that sequence where the hospital room ceiling appears to be collapsing due to the heat, but Rosenthal confirmed that this was actually the matte box attached to the camera, which had melted due to the intense heat and slid in front of the lens, causing it to get captured on film. Needless to say, no Hollywood studio these days is going to let filmmakers put camera equipment this close to a real fire. Number 9. Murderous Lawnmowers, Maximum Overdrive. Stephen King's directorial debut, 1986's cult classic horror Maximum Overdrive, proved a traumatic enough experience for King that he got sued, went on to disown the film, and vowed to never direct again. And once you know what happened on the set, you'll definitely appreciate why. Unfortunately, this is the one entry in this video where someone ended up suffering undeniable harm due to a stunt gone wrong, which additionally ended up destroying a camera also. For the sequence where a lawnmower comes to life and starts killing the residents of a suburban neighborhood, King wanted the mower to drive extremely close to the camera lens, and when concerned cinematographer Armando Nanuzzi recommended removing the mower's blades for safety's sake, King refused, wanting to see the glint of the blades even though they wouldn't be visible in the shot. And then, disaster struck. An effects malfunction caused the mower to drive into the camera at higher speed than expected, chewing through the matte box and doing a number on the camera body itself. But the real tragedy followed when the mower made contact with a wooden wedge, instantly splintering it and causing one of those splinters to fire directly into Nanuzzi's eye. This led to Nanuzzi losing his eye, effectively ending his career as a Hollywood cinematographer, at which point you have to ask yourself, who cares about a damn camera? Number 8. The Dachau Nightmare, Shutter Island. Even the great Martin Scorsese sometimes has to accept that he can't do the things he wants to do when good old-fashioned mechanical failure intervenes. While planning the Dachau dream sequences and memories that protagonist Teddy experiences throughout Shutter Island, Scorsese planned to shoot it on gorgeous, large-format 65mm film. But on just the second night of shooting with the cameras, they broke down and refused to work. As a result, Scorsese was forced to switch back to the more standard 35mm film the bulk of the movie was being shot on, with only a few brief shots of Teddy walking through the camp actually being successfully captured in 65mm before the breakage occurred. Apparently, even a director as legendary as Martin Scorsese can't get a defective 65mm camera replaced last minute. Though honestly, the Dachau dream sequences look great regardless, so it's tough to quibble about it too much. Number 7. Steve jumps out of the chopper, Piranha 2: The Spawning. Piranha 2: The Spawning is best remembered for being James Cameron's directorial debut, albeit a film he only reluctantly acknowledges due to its troubled production and the executive meddling he faced during editing. But long before Cameron got to the editing room, he faced a major problem on the low-budget shoot when filming a climactic sequence where heroic cop Steve Kimbrough, played by the ever-great Lance Henriksen, leaps out of a chopper to rescue his drowning family. During shooting, Cameron was aboard the helicopter and operating the camera himself, but when the chopper suddenly banked upwards to let a boat pass underneath it, the jolt caused Cameron to drop the camera into the sea. Worse still, given the low-budget nature of the shoot, they didn't exactly have the means to send deep-sea divers down to the ocean depths to recover the camera and footage, ensuring that both were lost forever, in turn forcing Cameron to source a new camera. And so, somewhere off the coast of Jamaica, a camera containing waterlogged footage from Piranha 2 has been swimming around for more than 40 years. Number 6. Basically, the whole movie, The Lighthouse. Robert Eggers' brilliant psychological horror film The Lighthouse saw the cast and crew alike suffer through a challenging shoot that, if nothing else, fittingly reflects the maddening nature of the end product. Though most of the lighthouse interiors were filmed on specifically constructed sets in relative comfort, exterior shots were captured on location in Nova Scotia, Canada, and posed serious challenges for Eggers and his team. First and foremost, the extremely wet climate caused cameras and general camera equipment to regularly break down due to being unavoidably exposed to moisture. It probably didn't help that cinematographer Jarin Blask combined camera gear from 3 different eras together, likely resulting in a lack of watertight weather sealing during the stormy shoot. The final film is nothing if not bleakly beautiful, with Eggers so expertly evoking a sense of place, which surely couldn't have been achieved without showing in inclement weather conditions for real. Camera integrity be damned. Number 5. Peter destroys his apartment. Vampire's Kiss. At the end of the Nicolas Cage starring comedy horror Vampire's Kiss, deranged protagonist Peter destroys his apartment in a fit of violent, unhinged rage. And in the film's DVD commentary, director Robert Bierman revealed that all the glass and furniture in the scene was real, as in, there was no safety glass and nothing rigged to break apart with minimal force. Real glass, Crimea River, of course, Jack Perry. Basically, they just left 2 cameras rolling and let Nick Cage do his thing, with the understanding that due to the sheer number of props involved, the scene could only be filmed once in a single take. As Sod's Law would have it, of course, one of the cameras decided to break down during this specific, unrepeatable sequence, leaving Bierman with just 1 camera to capture the footage and no B camera to cut away to during editing. Number 4. Camera falls from a spaceship. Phoenix Forgotten. 2017's found footage sci-fi horror flick Phoenix Forgotten concludes with the central characters being abducted by an alien spacecraft, after which their camera falls back down to Earth. In a thrilling sequence, the camera tumbles through the sky for a considerable amount of time before eventually impacting on the ground. Then the end credits roll, with the damaged camera continuing to record the sunset. But that damage wasn't an effect added in post-production. Director Justin Barber did it 100% for real. That scene was shot by attaching a JVC camcorder to a small weather balloon and simply letting it fall back to Earth once the balloon popped, with the impact damaging the camera's body and shattering the lens, though the internal mechanics were somehow still operational and continued to film, meaning the cracked lens in the final shot, that was completely legitimate. Number 3. On the Orca, Jaws. It's no secret at all that the production on Jaws was a horror show all of its own. Most famously, the mechanical shark refused to cooperate, resulting in Steven Spielberg having to feature it far less than anticipated, which, let's face it, was a happy accident that ultimately only enhanced the movie's tension. But there were myriad other issues, with the crew damn near mutinying against Spielberg as he struggled to maintain control of the roughshod shoot. One especially calamitous incident took place while shooting aboard Quint's boat, the Orca, which for reasons unknown began to sink. A pretty big issue for a movie that spends so much of its time shooting on the water. Spielberg reportedly called for the safety boats to swoop in and rescue the cast and crew, but it was too late for one of the film's cameras, which ended up fully submerged in the drink before it could be recovered. There was a somewhat happy outcome to this though, as the crew took the waterlogged film to a lab in New York, where against all expectations, technicians were able to treat and salvage every single frame of footage to be used during editing. Number 2. The Airplane Graveyard, Resident Evil Afterlife. Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil franchise had its fair share of unfortunate on-set accidents, yet one that thankfully resulted in no human harm occurred during filming of the series' 4th movie, Afterlife. During the sequence where Alice walks through an airplane graveyard and has a surprise encounter with her old pal Claire Redfield, Milla Jovovich accidentally obliterated the camera by shooting it. In a panel at San Diego Comic-Con back in 2010, co-star Ali Larter revealed that Jovovich discharged a round which fired straight into one of the cameras being used to film the sequence, causing the glass element of the lens to blow apart to the tune of $100,000 in damage. Nobody elaborated on precisely why blanks weren't being used for this shot, which is especially alarming in light of recent tragedies, but at the very least, the only casualty was a totally replaceable and insured camera. Number 1. The Police Chase, The Covenant. 2006's critically mauled supernatural horror flick The Covenant saw some heavy-duty camera equipment get wrecked while shooting its very first scene. The movie opens with the 4 male witch protagonists, Stephen Strait, Taylor Kitsch, Toby Hemingway, and Chase Crawford, fleeing the cops who have shown up to disrupt their decadent bonfire party in the woods. A brief car chase follows, but during shooting, a camera crane ended up misjudging its clearance and snagging itself on the cop car as it swerved underneath it. This caused huge damage to the crane, and if you know much about film equipment, those things can end up almost as expensive as high-end cameras themselves. But more crucially, the botch stunt also destroyed the camera itself, along with a lighting rig that was hooked up on top of it. That's one hell of an expensive mistake, all while shooting a relatively basic car chase sequence, no less. Not cool, man. So not cool.